trying to post. I'll post a couple things real quick. Hello, how are we doing tonight, everybody? My name is Chris. I am your host for the Action Lab. You might notice that tonight it's a little light. We don't have as many people as we typically have on the stream tonight. So that means I'm running solo tonight. We're running a solo show on the Action Lab. My co-host Scott is out, so we are going to be running this thing just on the fly here. We still got all of our best content, just one less. Probably the better half of us is not going to be here. I joke, the better half is definitely here. So, thank you for tuning in here. It is a Wednesday night, so we made it halfway through the week. We're almost to the weekend, right? It's always great. I always look forward to this show every single week, only because I know once we hit Wednesday night, it's all downhill from there, right? You get to Thursday, Thursday flows into Friday, and it's just I get to spend some quality time with all you lab rats out there that tune in each and every Wednesday and Sunday. So it's definitely nice to get all of that in on a Wednesday. I enjoy my Wednesday shows. I enjoy my Sunday shows just as much, but it's always nice halfway through the week to have something to look forward to and get me through. Hopefully you guys feel the same way, but I digress. I hope you guys are all having a great week. I hope everything is going well. I want to just make sure that you guys are aware that we're streaming on 3 different platforms here. We're streaming on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. I don't know why I blanked there for a second, but we're multi-streaming on all 3, so if you're here, make sure you hit those follow buttons to make sure that you are always in the loop with anything we have going on. We have some social medias you see on the screen right now, and we want to make sure you're always here. We want to make sure you get those notifications, so every time we pop on, let's say we're running a little late, let's say we're going a little early, maybe we have a pop-up stream. We want to make sure that you are always on board with us, and you can't do that if you don't know when we're going live. Typically, we stick to our schedule, but you never know. So I want to make sure that that's the case. With this, though, I want to just dive in and, see how you guys are doing. So if you're having a great week, throw it in the chat. I'd love to hear how you guys' day is going, how your week's going. There's a lot going on in the NBA and the NHL, that's for sure. So definitely want to touch on some of those items here on as well. But with that being said, how are you feeling about the playoffs? We got the NBA kicking off. We have a huge game tonight, guys. A huge game. We have the Lakers and Golden State Warriors, which I'm kind of jealous that I won't be able to watch, the first part of it. I want to see that Steph Curry matchup with LeBron James, and I wouldn't hate seeing the Lakers just flame out in this early round, not even make the playoffs in this, not make it out of the tournament. So I definitely want to hear your thoughts on all of that. I also want to hear your thoughts on, if you're a big NHL fan, what you're thinking about that. Then we also have my hometown Avalanche. They're going to be competing tonight in their Game 2. They won Game 1 already. So we'll touch on that a little bit. We'll do some scores and highlights throughout the NHL and NBA playoffs. So we're going to keep you in tune with all of those items as well. Early on in the show, we're going to hit, every single Wednesday, we hit our news rundown. So that's going to be all the top topics of the just around the country. Now, I will say it's a little bit of a slower week this week. We don't have as much going on. So we'll, throw out some topics. We have some couple good ones, a couple ones. Not gonna lie, it was a little bit of a stretch to find some topics that are newsworthy here for you guys. But hey, I put something together and we're gonna throw it your way. We're gonna have some fun with it. The other thing I love to say in the beginning of the show is, obviously, follow if you can. It means a lot to me. Doesn't cost you anything. Scotty will appreciate it when he gets back that I've earned him some followers as well. And it's just great for you guys to just be a part of it. But the most important thing, and tonight is no exception. Tonight is actually, the bigger piece of it, and we need more of this, is your participation. I love to make sure that everybody here is welcome and make sure that you guys are all ready to roll with all your sports conversations, topics, you name it. So that way we can make sure that we're having a fun conversation between all of us here in the community, all of us in the Action Lab community. So we want to hit all of you guys, capture all of your thoughts, your hot takes, everything you got, any kind of live commentary you got. Sometimes I can't even keep track of some of the scores, so maybe you keep me posted on maybe some of the big things that are happening around the leagues, or maybe even some big stories. I love all of that. And if there's anything you want to talk about, this is an open forum. So make sure that you are throwing those in the chat and we can just talk through some of those things, big questions, anything you guys got for me. So, it feels great to be here on a Wednesday. I hope you guys are doing well. I had a crazy day with work today, so I was just trying to, get through it, make sure that I was in the right headspace, and have some fun tonight, because the workday drains you. I know for me, it was hectic. I was super productive today. Can't say that for every day. I hope my boss isn't watching right now. But it is what it is. I just need to some people go to the gym to let off steam. Some people, have a couple drinks. I'm having actually a couple drinks as well. So we're going to be doing that together. And then, there's a lot of ways to let off steam. Go for a run, yoga, meditation. Mine is being here with you guys. So hopefully you guys enjoy all of the show tonight. This might be the best show ever. We say that every single week, and we mean it every single week, even if it's not true, but it mostly is. It's mostly true. So I'm going to stop rambling on, because that's what we do. So keep in mind, we have our scroller at the top. It doesn't always, it's just kind of stagnant. It doesn't always update, but had that there for you with some scores throughout the day, some finals and things like that. And let's dive in. We have a lot of news to touch on, so let's not waste any time. Let's jump in and touch on all of the hottest topics, the news of the week. And this is all news since Sunday. So typically on Sundays we have our big, local show, and we have like any kind of updates. We highlighted the NHL playoffs this past Sunday, and those are off and running. Now we're hitting the just the core of the first play-in games or first round of each postseason for the NHL and the NBA. So we're going to touch on that here after this little update with the news. So just want to start out real quick with our first topic of the day. We have the NBA Hall of Fame. So a total of 9 honorees were inducted in the 2021 class, which is comprised of 6 players, 3 coaches. And then there's some other weird ones that, also got in that were kind of like additions. So kind of wanted to go through. In case you missed it, there are a few here that are, well-deserving, and I think that we should definitely talk and highlight those accordingly. So let's dive in. So of these, the big names came through for the 2021. We also had the 2020, but I'll touch on that here in a minute. So in the 2021 class, the big ones were Chris Bosh, Paul Pierce, Ben Wallace, Chris Webber, and then you had some of the others: Tony Kukoc, Bob Dandridge, Rick Adelman, Cotton Fitzsimmons, Bill Russell. Bill Russell, you're like, wait, isn't Bill Russell already in? Yeah, he is. But he's already in as a player, and now he gets to go in as a coach. I'll touch on that here in a little bit as well. So as far as some of these other guys go, Weber, just to dive in, he was a finalist in each of the past 5 years before finally breaking through this year. His first year of eligibility, or his 5th year of eligibility, Bosh and Pierce were among those that made it in their first year of eligibility. So that's pretty cool. Good to see these guys get in. Now, Paul Pierce, and he's kind of the leading part of this class. There was also the 2020. So they didn't have the honor. It wasn't announced last year just because there was the COVID. It was delayed and everything else with the pandemic. So we had a little bit of a delayed reaction when it came to some of these others as well. But the names aren't. They're just as big, if not bigger, including Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and the late Kobe Bryant, who were inducted as part of the 2020 class. So that's huge. Obviously, Kobe is going to be that unanimous. All 3 of those guys are just they're well deserving, obviously. So it's fantastic that those guys were able to get in and make sure that they were enshrined in the Hall of Fame. But to dive in, each of these we'll touch on the guys in 2021 and kind of focus on them. So Paul Pierce obviously had a great career with the Boston Celtics. He was in the people forget this, but Paul Pierce also played with the Nets, the Wizards, the Clippers across the course of his career. Career highlights: he was a 2008 NBA champion with the Boston Celtics, 2008 Finals MVP, 10-time All-Star, And he also, just had some pretty solid career stats, averaging 19.7 points, 5.6 rebounds, 3.5 assists when it came to some of his numbers on that front. So pretty solid career in my opinion. I think he's definitely well deserving. So big ups to Paul Pierce. He is a stud. He's if my co-host was here, he would be talking his praises, because obviously we talk about on this show a few times where Paul Pierce was not selected as a Denver Nugget during his draft, but we took Rafe LaFrentz, the fellow Kansas Jayhawk, who ended up not having as great of a career, which I loved. I love Rafe LaFrentz, don't get me wrong. I have one of his jerseys, I think, somewhere in the house. I don't even know where it's at. I collected Nuggets jerseys. I'm a big Nuggets fan, so I was happy with Rafe, but he definitely isn't in the Hall of Fame like his old Kansas Jayhawk alum Paul Pierce. So great for him to be able to get in. Now we have Chris Bosh is the other one that is in the mix for this draft class. So he played for Toronto Raptors 2004 to 2010. Obviously, Aris Parker still wears jersey. Yeah, see, it's all about those old jerseys. The Rafe LaFrentz. I know you have that Jalen Rose. By the way, Aris Parker is a great friend of mine. He is actually my brother. He has all the jerseys. He's everything. He hooks it up with all those old school representing jerseys for the Denver Nuggets, just like I do. So big ups, RS. Yeah. So yeah, Chris Bosh, Toronto Raptors, 2004 to 2010. He also, if you remember this, shifted over to the Miami Heat, 2011 to 2016. And that's when he ended up teaming up with LeBron and Dwayne Wade to get with that super team. And he ended up winning that 2012 NBA championship. He's a 2013 NBA championship as well, an 11-time All-Star, averaging 19.2 points per game, 8.5 rebounds per game, and 2.0 assists per game. So he's obviously stud. It's kind of a shame at the end of his career that he was not able to play the last few, last couple of years of his career, I would say. I think he could have probably went another 2 or 3 seasons easily and still been fairly productive, but he also had that medical condition with his heart, and there was a lot of things that a lot of people didn't want to, risk his health and his career, obviously, as well, to keep him on the court. So a little bit of a bummer there, but RS, go Nuggets. Yeah, Nuggets are in action Saturday. So Nuggets end up playing and drawing the Portland Trailblazers, which will be their home stand. They start out home court advantage for that series, which will be great. Now, I think they're going to win that series. That's just me. I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be potentially a 6 to 7 game series, and it's going to go back and forth, but it's going to be a good series. It's one of the better series, I think, when it comes to just, projecting what we think it's going to be, and that's a long back and forth nail-biting series. So a lot of close games, I think, in there. I think it's going to be fantastic. Chris Webber, another one here who got inducted. Teams that Chris Webber played for. Obviously, he played for Golden State Warriors early on in his career. The Washington Bullets / Wizards. The Sacramento Kings is what most people, at least my generation, remember a lot of what he did with them from 1999 to 2005. 76ers from 05 to 07, and then finished his career with the Pistons. Some of these, it's kind of hard to remember where these guys finished their careers. Some of these, they bounced around a little bit, and I forget they even played with some of these teams. But some of his career highlights: he was the 1994 Rookie of the Year, 5-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, averaged 20.7 points per game over the course of his career, along with 9.8 rebounds, 4.2 assists. So not bad numbers there. Also joining him in this class is Ben Wallace. Now, Ben Wallace, if you remember him when he was in the thick of being that defensive presence, that rebounding, blocking machine. Dude could ball. He was absolutely terrifying for teams going up against him, and it's reflected here in this Basketball Hall of Fame induction. So he played most notably with the Detroit Pistons, but he started out with the Orlando Magic. Chicago Bulls ended up jumping on board to pull him away from the Pistons in the latter end of his career, and then he finished in 08-09 with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, some of his highlights: he ended up winning that 2004 NBA championship along with Chauncey Billups there. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, 4-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA. Just a stud. Now, you look at his career stats, and it's kind of interesting because he only averaged over the course of his career 5.7 points per game. Now, think about that. That's kind of interesting, right? You figure guys in the Hall of Fame, scoring's the biggest piece, but he was able to get in with that defensive, the blocks, the rebounds. So he averaged 9.6 rebounds per game, 2.0 blocks per game over the course of his 16 seasons. 6-time all defense, 2-time rebound leader, 1-time block leader. So kind of crazy that points weren't, statistically one of his big strong points, but he was able to carve out a career with being like a defensive kind of guy. So I think that's pretty impressive. Now, some people, I've heard some commentary where they're like, oh yeah, like he's great. Maybe, he's not like a bona fide Hall of Famer. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think he was pretty solid. So I think he deserves it, and I think he if you think back to his legacy that he left, and if you just mention the name Ben Wallace, you if you're a big NBA fan, you know that he just demanded the paint. He demanded that presence. He demanded that excellence, and he was the baller. So big ups to him. RS, Big Ben. I love this Piston team. Billups, Big Ben. Yeah. No, it's that was a great team. I wish Billups would have won for the Nuggets like he did for the Detroit Pistons, but he didn't necessarily help us out there. He did what he could, and we got pretty far. We ended up getting to the NBA Western Conference Finals, but fell a little short, unfortunately. So it didn't quite make it. But a couple others in here that were also well-deserving. On the women's side, Yolanda Griffith and Lauren Jackson. Now, these are two just ballers in the WNBA. Now, Yolanda Griffith, she played for the Sacramento Monarchs and the Seattle Storm and finished her career with the Indiana Fever. Career highlights: 2005 WNBA champion, 2005 Finals MVP, 1999 WNBA MVP, 1999 Defensive Player of the Year, 7-time All-Star. Now, here's the thing. I don't watch a lot of WNBA, and I don't think it's necessarily a big, popular thing to find on television. You don't really see it too much on, the national, listings of whatever network you have. It's kind of lost in translation, but that doesn't mean great things aren't happening within the WNBA. I mean, she was averaging 13.6, 7.9 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. So she had a tremendous career, a lot of big accolades there. Lauren Jackson is pretty much the same kind of thing. She just balled out. Seattle Storm, her entire career staying with one team, which is fantastic as well. You don't see that very often, but 2004 WNBA champion, and then 2010 MVP, Finals MVP, and champion. 3-time WNBA MVP in 2003, 7, and 10. And then 7-time All-Star, averaging 18.9 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, and 1.4 assists. So obviously she's just tremendous, and she played well for the Seattle Storm over the course of her career. Other members of the 2021 class include Rick Adelman, longtime NBA coach; Jay Wright, 2-time NCAA champion coach; Bill Russell, obviously, won 2 championships as a coach; before his time on the sideline, so he gets in as a coach side of things. Bill Russell just wins everything, right? Bob Dandridge, one of the Veterans Committee, Tony Kukoc on the International Committee, Pearl Moore, 4-time AIAW Small College All-American by the Women's Veterans Committee. So these are some of the smaller awards, but still really great that these guys were able to get recognized. Val Ackerman, Clarence Jenkins, Cotton Fitzsimmons, and Howard Garfunkel. So, man, it's kind of weird. Usually you have like a lot of these updates, especially with, you get the bings on all of the different, updates, Hall of Fame, stuff like that. We didn't get that last year. We missed the 2020, whole ceremony and everything else. And so all of a sudden this came around and I was like, man, definitely, have some big names coming down the pipeline. We'll have some bigger ones next year as well. So Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and Kobe Bryant, again, were the ones from the nominees from 2020 that were able to get enshrined as well with this group. It's just a little bit of a delay, as mentioned. So those are your Hall of Fame class. Let me know if all of these you think are deserving. Maybe they're not. Let me know in the chat if you think otherwise. But love to hear all your thoughts. And let me know if any are maybe missing the cut that you really wanted to get in that didn't. So love to hear all of your thoughts. Now, we're going to go into the next topic here. We have Albert Pujols. Now, he is now a Los Angeles Dodger. Now, obviously, Albert Pujols has kind of bounced around a little bit. He wore Dodger blue for the first time Monday, holding the news conference. He was talking a lot about, how excited he was to be in the Dodger uniform. He's been around for a little bit, right? The Los Angeles Angels released him after, in the last year of his tenure, $240 million contract. Now, I remember when this contract was first signed, and it was mind-blowing to me that you could sign someone for 10 years, $240 million, because it's like, you have no idea where a guy's going to be in 10 years. And the fact that he made it within 1 year of that contract, and he outlived that contract, almost outlived that contract based off of what was in there, is kind of crazy for me to think that. I didn't think he was going to make it 7 years into that contract, and look what he did. So obviously he didn't perform, as well towards the latter end of this contract, but he was released and he was able to make a change of atmosphere. Now, the change of atmosphere wasn't very far, right? He ended up only going right down the road to a different team, but the Los Angeles Angels designated Pujols for assignment on May 6th. They started, they wanted to start other guys pretty much. Every day first baseman for Albert Pujols is not something that they wanted to have. And Jared Welsh of the, he's in the mix. O'Hanty is in the mix. Majority of the plate appearances, they really want to grow those guys. And a bench role wasn't necessarily something that Pujols wanted, so to speak. At least that's what the president, John Caprino, said. But I know Pujols denied this. He's like, I'll be a team player, and I want to continue playing, and regardless of my role. But I think there might have been some things behind the scenes that may have pushed him away, and there might have been some disagreements at the playing time from that standpoint. But at full strength, the team plans to use Pujols, at least now, in late game pinch hitter positions. So particularly against left-handers who have given Dodgers trouble this season. It's been kind of a rough go for them. Pujols has only had 41 career plate appearances as a pinch hitter, but is confident he can make the adjustment into this new role. So we'll see what ends up happening there. R.S. Parker, I can't imagine Pujols wearing blue. Looks awkward. Yeah, it does. It's a little strange, and I don't know. It's different for me. It was actually weird for me to see him outside of a Cardinals uniform initially when he moved away from the Cardinals, and I was like, man, that's kind of strange. Obviously, the red matched with the Angels, so it was like, okay, yeah, it kind of fits. But as far as this in blue, it's a completely different change. Now, Pujols' arrival comes as the Dodgers continue to weather a long list of injuries, most notably shortstop Corey Seager, who can miss about 2 months with a fractured right hand he suffered on Saturday night. Dodgers everyday first baseman Max Muncy can also play second base, which might be necessary with Gavin Lux becoming a regular shortstop in Seager's absence. So they're kind of going back and forth, with what they want to put together based off of some of these injuries. And hopefully Pujols can, give them the, flexibility and some help when it comes to them filling some of those holes. Now, don't forget, Pujols began his career arguably one of the greatest 10-year runs in baseball history for St. Louis. But since then, he's been more of a below-average hitter. With by park adjusted OPS for the last 5 years was batting 198, 92 plate appearances this season entering Monday. He holds an .889 OPS in late and close situations and an 8.78 OPS against lefties in 2021. So, and he has an expected .513 slugging percentage, which, maybe, is some promising numbers for him to kind of grow into the rest of the season. But Pujols ranks 5th in his career in home runs, 667. Second in RBIs since they became official stat in 1920 with 2,113, and 14th in hits with 3,254 hits. He's won 3 National League MVP awards, 2 Gold Gloves, 6 Silver Sluggers, and has been invited to 10 All-Star games. So he has the accolades to really fall back on, and I think that's what the Dodgers are looking for. I think he's looking for the chance to get a championship with a team that has those aspirations and finish out this career with maybe a little bit more hardware. We'll see if that's the case this year. There's a lot of great teams. Basically in the NL West, there's a lot of great teams. So with that, it's going to be a little bit tough. San Diego's come out strong, and San Francisco's been a team that has really been a surprise and being, hovering as high as they are in that division. Don't look now, but the Rockies are coming up. No, they're not. They're not coming up. They are probably going to be at the bottom of that division. As much as myself and my co-host really want the Rockies to be good and relevant again, and by again I mean from those playoff runs or that one World Series run that they had. That's what I mean by again. It was far and in between, but it doesn't look like the Rockies are going to make that push. So looks like it's going to be a lot of races between the top of the division, between those 3 teams, San Diego, Dodgers, and the San Francisco Giants. Now, does this move the needle for the Dodgers? I don't know. I think it does a little bit. I just don't know. It's how much the Dodgers are going to utilize him. If they're just using him in, special situations and he can capitalize on his time, I think that would be great. But I don't know if this necessarily moves. They're already a good team, and once they do get healthy, Dodgers are probably one of the best teams in all of baseball. They're stacked. They have just ballers no matter where you look on this lineup, and they're fantastic to watch when they are just, fielding, hitting, doing it all. They're healthy, and I would expect to see them down the stretch in October when it comes to getting their mojo going with the playoffs. So we'll see how this pans out, but Dodgers make a move. We'll see. Next, we have the Belmont Stakes. Now, we touched on this story a little bit last week when, I was kind of, if you missed that episode, that show, we talked a lot about the Kentucky Derby, and let me know your guys' thoughts on horse racing. Now, horse racing, boxing, some of these sports that aren't necessarily mainstream, but then all of a sudden you have these big events like the Derby, the Triple Crown events, Belmont and Preakness. And then for boxing, you have these big fights that kind of pop up pay-per-view wise throughout the course of the year, and sometimes you have some big names. like Floyd Mayweather could pop up and fight somebody like he's doing with the Logan Paul or Jake Paul. I don't even know which one he's fighting at this point. So, yeah, like these kind of events, they're trying to do what they can to keep the sports relevant, which I think, horse racing and boxing are still pretty relevant for the most part. People still will watch these and bet on them. As long as there's money involved, there's going to be some sort of, some sort of interest, right? Now, the Kentucky Derby, I love betting. I love gambling. This Kentucky Derby was a little bit of a letdown for me. And I mentioned that in my previous show where, when you have a lot of these controversies of, horses in the Kentucky Derby or, the Belmont or whatever, especially in the Kentucky Derby, because it's the beginning of the Triple Crown. And it's one of the most prestigious races in horse racing in the world. So, of that, when something doesn't happen right in the Kentucky Derby, or like there's some sort of controversy with the winning horse or something along those lines, it really puts a damper on the rest of the Triple Crown races. And it makes me not really just that much more interested in it because of, well, this horse isn't legitimate, or this happened and they're not going to race in the second race, or maybe they had an issue like what happened in this race where there was some issues with some doping with the horse. Now, just to give you some background, if you're kind of new to this story, Bob Baffert was suspended from entering horses at the New York racetracks, and that includes the Belmont, pending an investigation for the Kentucky Derby winner, Medina Spirits, who failed a post-race drug test. Now, drug tests aren't new to Bob Baffert. He has 5 violations involving impermissible levels of medication in his horses over the last 13 months. He was fined in Kentucky and Arkansas and avoided suspension in Arkansas following an appeal, but he doesn't have a great track record. Previous penalties in the Kentucky, California, and Arkansas races, along with the current situation in Medina Spirit, and he's expected to make a final determination about the length and terms of the suspension based on the information revealed by Kentucky's ongoing investigation. That's the NYRA, New York Race Association President CEO Dave O'Rourke. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a controversy here. Now, there's no Triple Crown this year because another horse ended up winning the Belmont. So, it doesn't matter for Medina Spirits. This was done. So he'll not be able to race anyway. But Kentucky Derby winner, the steroid that he tested was sorry, I can't pronounce this word because it's just like those weird scientific words. Betamethasone in a post-race testing. They said they rubbed it on the horse and it's an ointment and this and that, but it still tested positive. So as far as that goes, this just, again, it's just, you have a guy who is kind of like he is the guy, right? He's the guy in horse racing. Everyone knows who, if you're just have seen horse racing, whether it's the Belmont, the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, if you watch them on TV, you watch it for the fashion, right, whatever, but you always see flashes of this guy. If you played a drinking game watching these horse races, and you saw Baffert, every time you had to take a drink, you saw Baffert on screen here, when you were watching one of these events, you'd be hammered halfway through the events, the televised event. So, he's a well-known guy. He's like the Robert Kraft of the horse racing world. He's just the guy. So when you see pretty much this happen over not just this race, but all of them, it makes you wonder how legitimate he is as he can't be clueless this many times. He can't be, oh, I messed up in the last 5 violations involving impermissible levels of medication. I had no idea about all of these. When there's smoke, there's fire, and when you have one of these, if it's a one-off, you give the guy the benefit of the doubt. When it's 5 violations over the last 13 months, there you have some issues. Maybe this guy made his money in a way that wasn't exactly the most honest. And that just kind of just really is disheartening to me. I've mentioned this, and this is like a side thing. If I were ever to be filthy rich, where I just have like insane amounts of money and I just don't know what to do with it. You know, obviously, you know, after donating, after, you know, paying bills and helping family and doing all that stuff, if I had a ton of money left over and I had some recreational thoughts in my head, I would open up a stable and, you know, do some horse racing and have some fun with it and do it the right way, right? But, you know, it's kind of hard when you have the deck stacked against you with some of the best trainers, and who knows if it's just Bob Baffert and some other guys that might be part of this as well. So, yeah, it's kind of rough. Devin Chat, look forward to the race all year. What a letdown. Totally agree. This guy, it takes this guy to ruin the sport. Yeah, and so, I don't know. Here's the thing. Next year, when we see this race again, in the Kentucky Derby, and you see Bob Baffert on there, what's the first thought you're going to have? The first thought is, I wonder if his horse is going to get caught this year. Or I wonder if something's going to happen with his horse, especially if he finishes first. Like, any first place finish for Bob Baffert from here on out, it's going to be questioned, even if it is legitimate. And that's the thing that's really brutal, is when you have that in the back of your head. Devin Chat bet on his horse. Yeah, there you go. I mean, if you want to make good money, you bet on his horse. Good point. Maybe we just let it ride and we just bet on his horse every single time. Next topic here, though. Let's get to the Broncos' new hire. And they made a historic hire here. The Broncos have brought in Kelly Klein. They've hired Kelly Klein as the Executive Director of Football Operations and Special Advisor to General Manager George Paton. The team announced this on Monday. Klein, 30, is believed to be the highest-ranking female scouting executive ever with an NFL team. Think about that. Like, this is, you know, we've seen a lot of different things happen with women getting high positions in the NFL. Now, you know, some of these mostly are, you know, you have some referees in there, you have some coaches. So, following the NFL postseason, in which a record 6 female coaches were on the sidelines, Klein's new and crucial role with the Broncos is another positive step for women in the NFL world, right? This is huge. The talent evaluation and everything that comes with being the Director of Football Operations and Special Advisor to the General Manager, that's a huge, huge role for anybody. And so the fact that a woman is brought in, Klein, you know, young, she's 30 years old, it's pretty impressive, right? Now, she came from the Minnesota Vikings, where our current GM, George Paton, was coming from as well. So he was pretty familiar with her leading into this. Now, she's going to be the primary liaison for the team's football operations and oversee various areas of the college and pro scouting departments, including player evaluation, preparation for the NFL draft, and free agency. So she will oversee the Broncos' video and equipment departments as well, by the way. So she's got a lot of accolades here that she's going to be filling some shoes that, you know, I think back to Minnesota. Minnesota, they had a decent team. They had some decent drafts. So I think that, you know, based off of what you know, our GM is looking to do, I think that this is a great step. I think any smart women in a big role like that, you kind of just wait to see exactly how much she can just get this team that much further. Maybe have a different mindset of how she goes about being the director of football ops. So it's pretty exciting. RS in the chat. I just want Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, I think I follow a couple Twitter accounts actually, and maybe she can help pull Aaron Rodgers in. I think Aaron Rodgers' girlfriend or wife, it's that new movie star, that one movie star. I think she has a lot of ties, if not being from Colorado. So I think that's a big push. But maybe she can, maybe Klein can help get some of that rolling here and get Aaron Rodgers. But there's a couple Twitter accounts that just literally post every single day saying, "Hey, is Aaron Rodgers a Bronco yet? When will Aaron Rodgers be a Bronco?" And then the very next day, "Hey, eating lunch, but is Aaron Rodgers a Bronco yet?" Just like every single day, just posting something random. So it'll be interesting to see if Aaron Rodgers can come here. If Aaron Rodgers is able to get here, maybe, you know, Kelly can help put in a good word and maybe, you know, say the right things to get him here and maybe help George Payton just get through this. But that immediately launches the Broncos into Super Bowl contention. Like, instantly. Overnight. You already saw this with some of the betting lines early on. I don't even know what the current betting lines are for the Broncos. If now is the time that you want to place a bet on the Broncos when there's some uncertainty and maybe you see some lines dropping across Vegas, it might not even be bettable in some books because they probably have taken it off, not knowing that what's going to happen with the outcome of it. But once Aaron Rodgers comes to the Broncos, if he does, I hope he does, that changes everything. That turns this division into one of the best divisions of football, outside of the Raiders being. I saw a funny meme actually today of the of the Las Vegas Raiders. It was actually a Twitter account posted this, and it was, you know, in the division you have the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, the Chargers drafted Justin Herbert. The Broncos are going after either Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson. And then the Raiders are building a DJ booth and a club in their end zone. Like a little club set up in their end zone. And it was just it's the most Raiders thing you could think of, right? It's just like all these teams are competing to be as the best possible. And the Raiders are just kind of what are they doing? I don't even know what they're doing half the time. So it was just a little funny side tangent there with what they have going on in the Las Vegas side of things. But hey, if they want to make their venue more exciting and, you know, bring in more people for parties and stuff, that's great. But parties for what? To watch a losing football team. Now, I don't think even without Rodgers and, you know, if they were able to get out of, you know, the Rodgers sweepstakes, they weren't in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes at some point, and we had to go in with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. I think it wouldn't be the worst thing. I don't think those guys are the worst quarterbacks. They're not great though. They're not what we want. They're not franchise quarterbacks to any extent. Bridgewater is a game manager, and he can, you know, do some things, but he's not a long-term solution. And Drew Lock is a guy that hasn't proven himself yet. Now, best case scenario, if we don't get Rodgers or Deshaun Watson or anything similar, you hope as a Broncos fan that Drew Lock can beat out Teddy Bridgewater. If Drew Lock beats out Teddy Bridgewater straight up, it could be a positive sign for Broncos fans. If Bridgewater wins that quarterback race in training camp, it's going to be a little rough. So I don't know. I think he'll manage games. I think we'll be maybe like a little bit below a 500 team, if not a 500 team. I think our defense will keep us in games, but you have to score points. Like, you can have the best defense in the world, but if you can't score points, that's the problem. RS in chat, is Melvin Gordon still alive? Probably not. He's probably out. He gone. No, he's fine. We definitely have a nice, promising young running back that we drafted this year, though, that is really climbing up a lot of people's top lists for, you know, sleepers, especially if you're a fantasy football guy and you love drafting sleepers. Which, RS, I know you love drafting sleepers. Yeah, that's your thing in fantasy football drafts. Take this nice young rookie that the Broncos drafted out of North Carolina and see what happens, because he's dynamic. He might get a lot of time, and just look out. I think Melvin Gordon is going to potentially end up being more of like a short down, goal line style back. But this other kid, man, he can do some things, so keep an eye out for him. But yeah, this Broncos hire is pretty crazy. You know, Klein, again, spent 10 seasons with Minnesota, where she recently served as the manager of player personnel. She was also a college scout, Wisconsin native. Got her start in the NFL in public relations with the Vikings in 2012 while finishing her degree at Minnesota. She entered the scouting department as an administrative intern in 2013 and became a scouting assistant in 2014, where she was promoted to be the team's college scouting coordinator from 15 to 18. College scouting, how fun would that be? Or even just like player scouting. I think that would be a fantastic job to have. Now you just travel around. The travel schedule may get you a little bit, right? So that's the problem. But outside of that, just cruising around and evaluating talent, you got to be good at it. You can't suck at it. So hopefully she's good. But yeah, I think it's gonna be one of those things where she can do some solid evaluating, bring in some solid free agents or nice young players over the course of her next few years with the Broncos if she lasts that long, and I think she's going to be solid. So RS 2000 Golden Flame 2020 champ. Don't sleep on me. Yeah, no, you finally got that. I think that might be your first one ever. So welcome to the club. Welcome to the Champions Club. I think I've won it maybe twice, that particular championship. So, I big props to you, man. Next year, you got to go to that back-to-back. So, Deb in chat, fantasy football is still a thing. Is fantasy football still a thing since online betting is here? That's another thing. I will say I haven't had as much interest in fantasy football over the last year. So if you don't know, in Colorado where I live currently, betting has been legal for about a year. So going into the NFL season last year, there was a couple things that really took me away from fantasy football and just took away kind of my interest that I usually just dive into. And I used to have like 5 fantasy football teams and everything. Well, COVID happened. So a lot of leagues and stuff didn't happen, and one of my main leagues, my big money league, didn't happen, so there was that. Plus online gambling was legal officially last May, so obviously I put a lot of time and energy into doing a lot of betting online, and then through like various apps like FanDuel, so those were great. Very, very addicting. I'm not addicted, so to speak, but I just love the fact that I could bet on all these different things when it comes to NFL, NBA, NHL, so on and so forth. And then on top of that, all the COVID stuff really put a damper on fantasy football leagues when your guy was in protocols or your team wasn't playing for a couple days after there was like an outbreak or something within the team. So there were a lot of different things that happened over the course of that NFL season that really put a damper on just how I felt about it. Now, we're not going to have a lot of those suspensions and a lot of the, suspensions of games and rescheduling of games and players getting COVID, because hopefully going into this next season, come the fall and everything else, everyone's kind of gotten those vaccinations, everything's kind of a little bit more settled in. Will we have issues? Yes, but maybe not as frequent as we did this past year when the pandemic was at its peak. So, we'll see. But maybe I will. Maybe I'll come back and I'll get into the fantasy football. This was the first year that I really got into the NFL draft more than I have in the entire time I've been watching football. Do I follow the draft? Yes. Did I really put a lot of work in, especially for our draft special? Absolutely. So now, maybe this is the year that I'm into it the most I've ever been. So following these guys coming into the league, seeing where they end up panning out. I might be overthinking my drafts like R.S. Parker does every single time. Who knows? But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. So, but yeah, besides that, Kelly Klein is the new executive director of football operations. So congrats to her, paving the way for all these women out there who are trying to get into some of these big sports gigs. I think it's fantastic. I think it's going to keep going that direction. Again, a lot of other like assistant coaches and things throughout the league, referees. You're going to see more females in high-level positions. You see this in the NBA too. NBA, you have the Nuggets have an assistant with their team that they're going to be keeping around for a while. She's helping out with some of the player side of things as well. So great stuff here. Love it. And then finally, we have Playoff Westbrook. So Playoff Westbrook, if you don't know, that is Mr. Russell Westbrook here. Now, Russell Westbrook, we were praising him quite a bit. Now, we were and we weren't, right? Because he obviously is one of the more dynamic players. He's the most athletic guy. He probably works harder on the basketball court more than any other player in the NBA currently and potentially ever. He is like he tears up the court no matter what he does. He's up and down, flashing, he's jumping, he's doing everything that you would just like. He's like a Tasmanian devil out there, practically. Gobbling up rebounds, dishing out assists, scoring the ball, driving to the lane, getting fouled, hitting free throws when he does. Now, this has helped him to take that triple-double title over, everybody else who's ever played the game. He's passed that mark about a week ago or so. He's going to be a future Hall of Famer, bar none. He's going to join these guys that we were talking about a little bit earlier. But, his legacy is the one that I question here, because he ends up going into this game, in Tuesday's game with the Celtics, and he was not great. He was below average in this game. Final line, 20 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, and it's not a game to celebrate for most players, especially in a game against Indiana, in a game against Boston, I think was a winnable game. So, they were favored, underdogs by 2.5, 2 points or so. 6 for 18 shooting from the field. Perfect 8 for 8 from the free throw line, but he just was not able to hit the shots that he needed. He just was very subpar, and it kind of goes into that legacy of where we think he's going to be one day when it's all said and done. If he never wins a championship, and he has a triple doubles, obviously he'll be a Hall of Famer, but where does he belong in maybe the top 100 players of all time, top 50 players? Is he in there in the top 50 players of all time? I mean, there could be arguments that he's not even in that realm because of what he hasn't accomplished. Now, one of the biggest things is, he was a former league MVP in 2017 when he averaged a triple double. 4 consecutive seasons, he's just been he's great statistically, but he's never been able to get over the hump and just get the titles to go with all of his accolades. I think that would make him far and ahead, leaps and bounds, where he is currently ranked. I think in most people's opinions, where he could be once his career is over and his legacy is set. So, he's one of the greats to ever play the game. No question. No one questions his talent, but I just don't know. He can't perform in these big games. I mean, he actually was, if you remember, with Houston, with Harden and Durant, OKC, and wasn't able to get things done. So that's just kind of been his MO over the course of his entire career. So, in Westbrook's defense, though, Washington was far from full strength against the Celtics. Fellow All-Star Bradley Beal acknowledging earlier that he wouldn't be 100%. He had 22 points and got them on a 10 of 25 shooting to go with 9 rebounds and 6 assists for his stat line. So, he had a little bit, but it was kind of disappointing. I actually had a little bit of money on the Washington Wizards to win this game. Not a lot, just a little bit, because it's one of those games where you just don't know which way it's going to go. Boston, keep in mind, lost Jaylen Brown. They've been out of sorts going into the playoffs. They've been absolutely rough. No one expected them to do anything in the playoffs, and no one expects them still to do anything in the playoffs. But they also had a 50-point game from their all-star, and so it definitely helps when you have a guy who just wills a team and puts them on his shoulders. So Celtics ended up, putting an end to the season for Russell Westbrook. So well, the playing game, there's still, there's still that. So we'll see. But even on an off night, though, I mean, Westbrook was fine. It just, I think there's going to be a lot of questions about his legacy going into when he's all done, when it's all said and done, and his rankings amongst the greats, where he would land. And I don't know if triple doubles are exactly something that can get you over the hump. Now, I mean, because we were talking in the last stream, and Scotty and I were saying that potentially Luka could be passing him eventually. Luka already in his young career has a ton of triple doubles. So, he's only, I think, 23 at this point. I think he's in the 40s or 50s in triple doubles. So there's a lot of career left for him. Jokic has a lot of time in his career. Jokic is 26, I believe, and he's got a bunch of triple doubles under his belt, and he's in the top 10 as well. So there's a few guys. LeBron James is still in that list, in that mix there. James Harden is in that list as well, just right above Jokic. I don't think James Harden's going to get a lot based off of just the fact that he's always injured and things. So there's going to be some players that are going to come over the course of their careers and challenge for that triple-double title later on. But we'll see how this ends up panning out. Again, Westbrook's a great talent. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know where things are going to kind of settle out with him when it's all said and done. But that's all we have for you for the rundown here. Now, I want to just go and dive in real quick to a couple things before. I want to check some scores for you because there are a bunch of games going on tonight. One is the big Lakers game that Lakers and Golden State that I want to keep tabs on. That's going to be a bigger one here, and that's already kicked off. So right now, the Lakers are losing to the Golden State Warriors 28-21, which, man, that's if there was a nightmare scenario for the Lakers, it would be having to play Steph Curry in this first play-in tournament game, and it happened. It's just how it ended up panning out, and right now, it's looking pretty early on. Like Steph Curry already 2 for 6 with 5 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Actually, Wiggins is actually having a pretty decent game. 7 points on 3 of 5 shooting and 1 for 3 from 3-point range. I would love, and Scott, my co-host, who is not with us today, was hoping that this was going to be a game that the Lakers lost. They get in the playing game. They lose to the Golden State Warriors and end up having to face some pressure in this postseason. And you're seeing exactly that happen. So we'll see. This is a long game from being over. But the Steph Curry that we know and what we've seen over the course of this last part of the season, close to being an MVP candidate in the realm of Jokic and maybe a Chris Paul or maybe a Joel Embiid. He could just light things up. He could shoot from anywhere on the court, and anything can happen in this game. So I'm going to be keeping close tabs on this game as we go through the evening here. Already, we have a final. The Memphis Grizzlies end up beating the San Antonio Spurs here. So let's dive into our bracket here and just see where things are at. So currently, the Washington Wizards losing to the loss to the Boston Celtics, and then the Indiana Pacers beat the Charlotte Hornets. So that's kind of what we're looking at on the right side of the bracket here. You already have everything on the East kind of figured out when it comes to those initial play-in games. So now it's just trying to figure out what's going to happen with the West side. Now, since San Antonio lost, I believe. So yeah, I mentioned San Antonio lost 100-96 to Memphis. So that's gonna be they're gonna be playing the winner of the 9-10, or the winner of 9-10 is gonna play the loser of the Lakers Golden State Warriors series. So that's gonna be an interesting one as well. Mayday popping in. Hey, go Phillies. All right, Phillies. Yeah, they. I haven't seen the scores. What's the score in that game, Mayday? Let me know. I haven't been keeping tabs on that. Oh, they lost already. Sorry about your boys. They'll get the next one, man. There's a lot of games left. They got plenty of time. But thanks for stopping in and keeping me company here. Again, if you're new to the channel, normally I have a co-host. I have Scott as my co-host, so he's out. He had a family member, his grandmother passed away, so he's heading out to be a part of that whole thing when it comes to the funeral and things along those lines. So I'm holding down the fort here with you guys. We're making sure you guys still have a fun show to be a part of here, and we're going to be talking a little bit some playoffs here. So if you're here and you're new to the show, you're new to the channel, you're watching on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, hit those follow buttons. It means a lot. Pound that follow button as hard as you possibly can, and then participate. Throw in your thoughts on your favorite teams. Let's say if it's in the playoffs or maybe just in general. Maybe they're already eliminated and you just want to chat about what they're going to look like next year. We can definitely do that too. So, but yeah, so just to reiterate, so Indiana Pacers end up moving on. Charlotte's done. And then you have the Washington-Boston. The loser is going to be playing, so Washington's going to go. Hopefully you have a better turnout from Westbrook in that game. And then Boston's is already locked themselves into playing Brooklyn, which I have a feeling Brooklyn's just going to crush them. That's going to be a quick series. I think it's going to go, maybe Boston might steal a game. I don't think so, though. I think Brooklyn's going to be pretty solid there. We're hoping that Mayday's 76ers do some work in that side of the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. Mayday, I really hope the Lakers lose 2 in a row. Yeah, that's I think between the Brooklyn Nets losing at some point before the NBA Finals and the Lakers losing, if both those things happened, I wouldn't be the most upset guy in the world. I'll tell you that. It's going to be kind of refreshing not to see the Lakers in the playoffs. As much as, I appreciate LeBron, I appreciate, his talent and what he can bring, but I don't want to see him win anymore. I don't. And it makes the West a little bit more interesting, right? Because, all right, so you got Utah at the #1 spot. Utah is a team that I still don't necessarily... First of all, Donovan Mitchell's still out. We don't know what you're getting with them. If he's going to be 100%, and you don't know whether or not they're legit. I don't know. I still don't think Utah is a team that I'd be necessarily super scared of if I was playing them. Especially, like we say this every week because we're from Denver. If Jamal Murray was still playing with the Nuggets, I would love their path. I love their path. I mean, the Clippers might present a little bit of a challenge. The Lakers would present a challenge for us because they have some mismatches at that power forward, which, Anthony Davis kind of gives us some fits. But, man, if Jamal Murray doesn't go down, I would love the Nuggets' chances to bake some big, big runs into the playoffs. Now, the Phoenix Suns are the 2 seed there in the West. I don't know if Phoenix necessarily... They're a little scarier for me than Utah, in my opinion, because they have some veteran leadership. They got Chris Paul. Chris Paul can get some calls. He's a veteran in the league. He's a smart guy. He gets those teams. He gets his team ready to play, and he has a lot of wisdom he can bestow among his team to get them ready to play at the best level. He's had that playoff, experience. He knows what's up. Now, the experience is the aspect that Phoenix isn't necessarily going to be used to. I think that's going to be a big, big aspect. You saw that in the Charlotte series. You saw a lot of people who were jumping on Charlotte and maybe putting some bets on Charlotte thinking that they were going to be good. And I didn't understand that only because they have a lot of young guys on that team that haven't been in this situation, that haven't been in a pressure game, especially, this isn't even the playoffs yet. This is kind of a lot more of a play-in tournament, but it's still playoff-ish basketball. So the fact that Charlotte struggled didn't surprise me whatsoever. I thought that was going to be one of the more easy decisions to choose, Indiana in that matchup over Charlotte. So from that standpoint, I think experience is a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to the playoffs. That's why I think maybe Dallas is, Luka, I think he'll be fine. Some of that team, I just don't think they're deep enough to beat the Clippers. The Clippers have that playoff kind of, the experience there. But then you also have players that choke on the Clippers. Each team, I think, to some extent, is flawed. And at least in the West, there's some sort of flaw in each one. The Clippers, you don't know what you're getting from Paul George, or the leadership, or the clutchness from Paul George when it matters. That's why he has the nickname Playoff Pete. You don't know what you're getting from Kawhi Leonard down the stretch based off of last year's performance. So is he going to do that this year? Who knows? Portland, they have some issues with being healthy, but they just don't have Damian Lillard hasn't had the same year as he had in the past, where he was just on fire every single game, just lighting it up. Maybe the playoffs bring that out of him, and that would be terrifying for the Denver Nuggets. But they don't seem as strong as they were last year. Nuggets end up losing Jamal Murray. That's their biggest hole there, but they have some depth. They can make up for some of that. They could never make up for Jamal Murray, but they could make up for that with some of the role players behind them. Phoenix, maybe some experience from the younger guys, maybe not ready to play in a big time pressure position, especially from a number 2 seed. And then you have all the playing games. Lakers, I don't see that. Honestly, this is the weakest I've ever seen the Lakers. The Lakers have definitely not been the Lakers of because you don't know if LeBron James, he could be 60% right now, 70%. Who knows? We don't know where he's at. Anthony Davis is always hurt. He's almost like a Porzingis. You just don't know when he's ever going to be on the court, and when he is, he's good, but what percentage is he healthy? Golden State, they have Steph Curry and a couple of nice pieces there, but they don't have a full roster deep enough, I don't think, to hang with some of these other teams. And then Memphis and San Antonio, I don't think that they're any good either. Well, they're good, but they're not they're not to the caliber of what you see already in the playoff picture on the West. So a lot of holes, man. Like this is one of the weakest I've ever seen the Western Conference, even though it's still really good. It's one of the weakest I've seen. Mayday. We are the beast in the East. Don't mess with with Embiid, the process, X Factor, big man Joel Embiid, the Aussie big man Ben Simmons, the Clipper. Oh, you're hyping me up here. You're hyping me up with this is like a hype reel. Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, former Lakers Spurs, Danny Green. Danny Green, I feel like he's kind of hit and miss. When he's good, he's good. When he's bad, he's terrible. So keep your eye out for him. Make sure he's good. And last but not least, former Mavs player, brother Seth Curry, brother of Steph Curry. Yeah, he's definitely not as good as his brother, but he can definitely play, and he can definitely do some good things for them too. No, I really like Philadelphia is one of those teams in the East. I think the East has less holes than the West does. So Philadelphia, you got to worry about. The Brooklyn Nets, they have injury issues, so I don't know, but they're potent. They have 3 of the best players potentially in the entire league on one team, and that means something. That accounts for something. Miami and Milwaukee, they're okay. I feel like Miami and Milwaukee, I don't think they've done anything that really tell me that they could surpass Philadelphia or Brooklyn. Either of those teams. The Knicks are a great story. Can they win that series against Atlanta? I do think they could, yes. I just don't know I think that might be where their storybook season ends. And if you're a New York Knicks fan, I will say, you got to be happy with the season. You have to be ecstatic with how they played. Some people, I've seen some, people on here saying if they don't win the first round of the series, if they don't win this first round series against the Atlanta Hawks, then the season is a failure. I completely disagree. I do not think that's the case. I think New York has had one of the best seasons that they've had in a long, long time. Statistically and based off their record, they're just unbelievable what they've been able to do and turn things around from a franchise that was absolutely a dumpster fire. It was, they I don't know if they've necessarily made the Knicks that destination quite yet, but they're on their way. They're 1 or 2 big pieces away, I think, from being a potential top 3 seed in the East, in my opinion. Julius Randle has been fantastic in being able to turn his career around. He's one of the most improved players. You put him on a team like this, coming from LA, like that's an argument for LA. Like, you know, there's a lot of players that left LA and LeBron and ended up flourishing. He's one of them. You have, you know, what's his name in New Orleans, along with, why am I blanking on his name? With Zion. I'm blanking on his name, but they're power forward down there, or they're small forward down there in New Orleans. It's gonna bug me. Sorry, I have to look it up. I do. It's Brandon Ingram. There we go. I'm like, why am I blanking on Brandon Ingram's name? Yeah, Brandon Ingram left. He's thriving in a new city, just along with Julius Randle. So there's something to be said about teams or players that leave the control that LeBron James has in his city and ends up, you know, they end up doing some big things. So big ups to the New York Knicks. I think that they really, really have a big future ahead of them in the next few years, and we'll see how they end up going. But yeah, it's fascinating to see how the powers have shifted and how the West is not exactly there's holes with all the teams in the West. There's maybe a couple teams in the East that maybe don't have the same holes in the East. The East is definitely weaker overall, but there's 2 or 3 teams that really could take it to whoever comes out of the West, and that's Philadelphia and Brooklyn. Milwaukee could be, but I have not 100% sold on Giannis being able to get them over the hump quite yet. He's still young in his career. I think he will be able to get there. They have a really stacked team, which is kind of why I think that they've kind of underperformed, in my opinion, to what I thought they would be preseason when they got a lot of these players. And even when they, at the trade deadline, when they made some of the moves that they made, I thought they were going to be a lot better than they were. And, you know, they did end up finishing with a 3 seed, but not impressive for me enough to, you know, really get hyped about them making a run. So, by the way, Golden State Warriors right now up 5 over the Los Angeles Lakers. Andrew Wiggins still leading that team with 9 points. Now that's going to have to change. We're going to have Steph Curry really just start going off here for the Lakers. But right now, still holding them off. Right now, LeBron James only has 5 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. So they're going to need to have a big game from him, depending on how hurt he is or not hurt he is. And then Anthony Davis only has 3 points.
Your entire space.
3 points currently. So he hasn't exactly been doing much. And we're halfway through the second quarter, guys. We're halfway through the second quarter, and those big names aren't exactly taking over like they would, I feel, if they were completely healthy. So we'll see what ends up happening with this game. So we'll keep you up to speed with that. Who do you guys think is going to be coming out of the East? Who do you think is coming out of the West? I would love to hear what you guys have to say, because man, I can't wait for Saturday. Saturday is going to be a fun day in the sense that we'll have that first round of games. We'll have the Denver, Portland, the Clippers, and the Dallas Mavericks. I think the Clippers should win that series. Dallas Mavericks, I don't know. Porzingis, I don't trust him to stay healthy. But yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be a fun playoffs for me. I really want to see also Utah and Phoenix flame out. I really want to see that. Why is CNBC doing updates of others' games while the Avalanche are in the first period? They suck. NBC, the NBC Sports. I think that's where they're televised. By the way, we do have the playoff hockey going on at the same time here. Now, the playoff hockey, I haven't checked some of those scores recently, but let's go ahead and pop into those real quick here and see what we have. Okay. Bear with me here. Okay, so R.S. Parker in the chat. Nuggets beat Milwaukee in the finals. Boom, done. Oh, you're calling your shot. You're going Babe Ruth on me, and you're calling the shot for the the Bucks to make it. After everything I said, I didn't believe about the Bucks. Hey, you know what? I like it. I like it. You're taking a chance, and I love that. So I'm never gonna take that away from you. We're always gonna have that. Now, the Nuggets need to outlast some teams, but it's doable. I'm telling you. I think if they grind out a series, that could be perfect. So, by the way, let's touch on these NHL playoff scoreboards here. We have currently the Avs just scored just now, I believe. I might have just missed it by a couple seconds, but Avalanche, Donskoy ended up scoring for the Avs, so they are up 1-0 over the Blues. They ended up having a big 4-1 win over the Blues in Game 1, so this is Game 2 of that series, and they are, you know, we're going to see if they can keep that trend rolling in the right direction. Now, the Avs are one of the favorites. They finished with the best record in the NHL. They got the trophy for that, and they're just carrying that over to the postseason with a 1-0 lead in the second game, up 1-0. You also have another couple games going on. The Jets, Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers tied, knotted up at 1 at the end of 2 periods. Then you have the Bruins coming back to beat the Capitals here. It was a 2-2 game, and this was actually in double overtime. So, man, this one was an exciting one. I'm sorry I missed it. Right now, Boston leads the series 2-1, and they are taking pretty much control of this one. I knew I should have picked Boston when we were going through our predictions on this, and it was one of those things that I went against my gut because the Caps won that first game, and it's hard to go against the team that's, you know, comes out in the first game and just does, you know, what they did. But the Bruins are doing that. They're right now leading the series 2-1 after this win tonight, 3-2 over the Caps. So we'll see if the Capitals can tie it up here. And then in the other game, we have the Hurricanes, 3-0 winners over the Predators. This isn't a big surprise. We had a feeling Carolina, they're one of the best home teams in hockey. They are leading the series 2-0. This is their final home game of the first first part of the series. So they are going to move over to the Nashville home ice next to see if Nashville can try to, you know, salvage some wins. But Hurricanes should be taking this series pretty handily here. So all of these games, honestly, have been pretty exciting. The first actual couple games, first couple games of each series went into overtime or were decided by 1 goal, which was, that's some playoff hockey if you ask me. Like, to be able to see competitive games in the NHL playoffs, it just makes it that much more exciting. And this has been one of the best playoffs early on, given the, you know, the new playoff format and everything else. Man, it's been pretty exciting. So yesterday, actually, let's go into yesterday's scores since we weren't able to see some of those. By the way, you still have some regular season games going on. The Flames and the Canucks played yesterday and today, so we're not going to talk about them. They didn't qualify. I don't know why they're playing these games. It's kind of pointless. They're just having fun for their fans, I guess. It's kind of like, just cancel them. Why are we having regular season games for teams that have zero, like, participation in what's actually happening currently? It's like the NIT with even less of a emphasis on importance. It's like, what? Why? Yesterday we had the Penguins win against the Islanders. Islanders won Game 1, which is kind of a surprising, turn of events there. because the Islanders are the 4 seed in that particular side of the bracket, but they ended up getting a good win. Very good defensive team, so we thought maybe goaltending could keep them in the games. They could potentially upset the Penguins here, and the Penguins ended up winning. So Penguins are up 2-1 over the Islanders in this series. Tampa Bay ended up getting a win over the Panthers, which puts them up 2-0 in that series. Again, people think, the fact that Tampa Bay is the 3 seed, that they're not as good. They're defending champions, everybody. In case you haven't, in case you forgot, they're defending champions and they're still really, really good. So the fact that they're putting it to the Panthers in that Florida battle down there, hey, Panthers need to do something quick. Panthers, really, really great regular season team. One of the top in points in NHL. It's kind of surprising. The first game was electrifying. It was like, one team would go up 2 goals, then it would completely flip and they would be down 2 goals, and it was just all over the place. And this game wasn't exactly that electrifying, but Lightning ended up getting the win over the Panthers to take a 2-0 lead. So they're taking, by the way, they took away home ice completely. So now Lightning end up getting the home ice advantage by going back home and being able to potentially finish this series at home if they just run the table here. Golden Knights, after the shocking loss against the Minnesota Wild on the first game of the series, end up righting the ship, which we thought they would do. No one thought that the Golden Knights would lose to the Wild, at least 2 straight games to open up the series. Golden Knights were up there with the Avalanche and one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NHL. So they righted the ship and they're back in the driver's seat, in my opinion. Here they're going back to Minnesota for the next 2 games. So we'll see how that ends up panning out for Minnesota, if they're able to maybe challenge. Now, we were talking about this off air a little bit, but Minnesota has had the Golden Knights number over the course of the year. The Minnesota Wild have gotten some wins over the Golden Knights, and there are such things as matchup problems in all sports, right? This is not. This is one of those matchups that gives the Golden Knights in trouble. So I do think this is. Golden Knights should win the series. I don't think it's going to be a runaway series by any means, though. I think the Minnesota Wild are going to give them a tough challenge. Now, keep in mind, the longer that series goes, the better, because I think Colorado Avalanche, based off of what they're doing tonight and based off of what they did in Game 1, they should be able to make quick work of the St. Louis Blues. I would think. I would hope. Knock on wood. I'll knock on wood all day. Make sure, I don't jinx my teams here. But to have that rest and to get some guys healthy, I know Nathan McKinnon especially has had some issues with health over the latter part of the season with those last few games that he was sitting out. Any kind of health advantage there, getting those guys in the right spot is going to be really, really good, especially if they can take some time and be able to rest up for a tough series against the Vegas Knights, which I anticipate happening. But if Minnesota can beat those guys up a little bit and tire them out a little bit, I'll take it, because that series, obviously the Vegas-Colorado matchup is what everyone's wanting to see in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Those teams battled back and forth. Colorado wins, then Vegas wins, back and forth, back and forth. It was, I think, pretty even over the course of the splits of the regular season. So it's going to be really, really exciting to see that matchup. And as nervous as it makes me, I mean, obviously this is a potential Stanley Cup Finals matchup that we're going to see in the second round. So that's what's going to be exciting for me to see how that unfolds and how that plays out. But what are your thoughts, guys? I want to hear about what you guys have to say here, what you think you want to happen, who you guys got winning it all, who you guys got winning these first round series, because there's a lot of action that's going to be happening over the course of the next couple weeks in these first couple rounds of the playoffs. But it's crazy how quickly it all came. Like, we had a couple weeks to go and prepping and kind of scouting who's going to play who, and all of a sudden we're almost halfway through the first series of each of these games in the NHL. It went by so fast. So it's kind of wild, but I'm excited to see how the playoff format ends up continuing to unfold, especially with some of these brackets and who ends up coming out of them, if there's going to be any upsets. Because I'll tell you, we talked about this a little bit on the last stream. If there's any sport where there could be an upset of a team that, an 8 seed or a long shot, it's going to be hockey, right? Because all you need is really a good goaltending performance at the right time. Defense and goaltending, and mainly goaltending. If your goalie can keep you in games consistently, it doesn't matter if you're the 8 seed or the 1 seed. You're going to be doing some incredible things when it comes to making runs in the NHL playoffs. So, you don't put it past any of these 4 seeds in any of these corners of this bracket. You don't put anything past them, because it only takes one hot goalie to really propel you all the way to winning a Stanley Cup. I'm hoping Grubauer for the Colorado Avalanche can stay healthy and keep that rolling for them, because it's going to be huge if they can. So yeah, we'll see. But Carolina's a scary team. Tampa Bay, even though Tampa Bay ended up stretch, people forget they started out the season one of the hottest teams in hockey, along with the Avs and along with the Knights, Vegas Knights, and they kind of stumbled down the latter end of the season, and that's why they're winning this series against Florida. They're a veteran team. They've been here. They've done this last year. They're defending champions. So honestly, I think the other really stud corner of this bracket is going to be that Carolina, Nashville, Florida, Tampa Bay side, where Tampa Bay and Carolina are just the cream of the crop in that corner. The Toronto Maple Leafs in the upper left-hand bracket, the Canadian corner, the CC up there. They are obviously the cream of the crop of that whole corner. They should come out of that one. That's the easiest run of any 1 seed, I would think, of the NHL playoffs. We talked about that as well. But I don't think they stack up in regard to the rest of these quadrants here. So Pittsburgh could be there, Boston could be there, coming out of the other side. So a lot of fun little matchups here. And man, I'll tell you what, if you're new to playoff hockey, watch some of these games. They are, even if you're not a fan of these particular teams, the up and down pace, NBA and NHL playoffs are some of the 2 best playoff in all sports. Obviously, there's not too many others, like, obviously soccer or baseball. I love, baseball's fine. I like that. But, you have to have a team in the mix to get really involved. I don't think in hockey or basketball you have to necessarily have a team involved to get some really solid, games. You want to see, like in hockey, you want to see, the best teams, the Avs, the Vegas Knights going at it. You want to see the Tampa Bay Carolinas. Man, that's going to be. I can't wait for that. Like, I'm not even a fan of these other teams, but I'm excited for that Tampa Bay Carolina matchup if it happens. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm going to be watching all the way through. We're going to have some fun. Cheers to all the playoffs. I have all these resources in front of me, and I haven't been getting them going here. So just freshen it up. But let's go back. So we've been kind of going back and forth between the Stanley Cup playoffs and the NBA playoffs. I want to kind of finish out the night here on the show with just kind of monitoring some of these NBA scores, because this was the big matchup that's been hyped up over the last couple days at least, and that's the Warriors matchup with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I love watching the Lakers lose. Lakers are one of my least favorite teams to watch, or at least favorite teams to root for, I guess I should say. The Lakers are one of my more hated teams, if I have to choose one, based off of the fact that going to games when I was a kid, some of the most obnoxious fans that you would encounter would be Laker fans. And I appreciate the Lakers franchise. They're historic, whatever. But the fan base you have to battle with. They talk a lot of trash. They make life hard for you when you're at the games. And so, you know, I just always had a kind of a disdain for the Lakers. So the fact that they're down 49-37, almost, so we're about a minute 57 into this with a minute 57 left in the second quarter. Down 49-37, the Lakers struggling right now. Right now, the top performers for the Lakers, their leading scorer currently, as it sits right now with this score, 49-37, is Alex Caruso. 10 points, 1 rebound, 1 block. He's the top performer currently for the LA Lakers. Looking at their stats here, Anthony Davis had 5 points. LeBron James has 6 points. That is not a team that screams they want to win this game. They better come up with something big, and even Alex Caruso just put in another bucket here to try to close the gap. But I question whether or not the Lakers would even make it into the playoff format. I just didn't think that they were healthy enough. I don't think that they have the tenacity to kind of battle those injuries, because, you know, it's hard to come back from injuries when you're a little older, aka LeBron, or if you have battled injuries your entire career like Anthony Davis. I would love to see them get upset here. So we're going to keep tabs on this game throughout the night. Again, Grizzlies already beat the Spurs 196. So that's what we're looking at here at the top end of this 9-10. So that means the Spurs are eliminated from playoff contention. They will not be playing in the playoffs this year. So that means the Memphis Grizzlies will play in the next game. So they'll play the loser of the 7-9 will go to play Utah, and then Memphis will be the winner of the 9-10 game, obviously. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this ends up playing out. But NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs, this has been one of my favorite years to watch. And it's kind of interesting that both end up having a different playoff scenario that are happening. But that's just the way things are kind of evolving. Who knows if we're going to continue with this little playoff bracket for the NBA. A lot of players, especially the ones that are in it, that shouldn't be, like the Lakers, were having trouble with, you know, accepting the playoff bracket. But some of the teams that were in the 9 and 10 seeds that have a chance to play in, you got to believe they're loving it. So it just kind of depends on where you're at. But what do you guys think is going to happen tonight with the Lakers and the Golden State Warriors? Who do you want? Do you want to see LeBron kind of outlast the Golden State Warriors and try to get into the playoff mix? Do you want to see, you know, a change of pace? Obviously, I do. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I'll be once we get off stream here tonight, I'll be checking that out and watching it very closely. So Saturday's matchups. Let's get into Saturday's matchups, because we don't. So Thursday we'll have the Pacers and the Wizards playing each other. So we're gonna make sure that game is the next up on the list here tomorrow night. And I think the Pacers are gonna win that game. I think the Wizards, even though they're favored, currently the line on that game, Washington is favored by 3, which is interesting. I don't think that they're 3 points better than the Pacers. They are at home, so they'll be able to have that. But the Wizards, I mean, they finished the regular season 34-38. They struggled against the Boston team that I didn't think had any business winning that game. And, you know, Boston just showed up. Westbrook didn't. And the Washington Wizards didn't. So it was just a little bit, didn't seem like the Wizards just had anything there. And I thought the Pacers just really came out strong, like they really wanted to win that game against the Hornets. They did what they had to do, right? They won a game against a team that had, you know, just a bunch of, you know, young guys, new to the playoffs, everything. So I think the Pacers end up winning this game. If you're a betting man on this one, or if you love betting on games, the Pacers getting 3 it's kind of hard to pass up on the Pacers getting 3. So take the points. Just little, off the cuff. Now they say the over/under is going to be about 238, so they're saying this is going to be kind of a high-scoring game. So I think that's going to be pretty exciting back-and-forth game. Not a lot of defense being played there, but that's just the pace that the Washington Wizards like to run with Westbrook and everything else. So, Deb, Avs just scored 2-0. Nice. So that puts them up 2-0. That's a great. Let's see who ended up scoring that goal for the Avs. And let's just go back out here to our other scene. We can just kind of just talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So last show we ended with kind of your thoughts, and it was fantastic. It was a new thing that we did where anyone who's watching here gets to just throw out whatever you want to talk about, whatever's on your mind, whatever's in your frustration basket, whatever in your I want to talk about this basket. Just take what you want and just throw it out there, and we can chat about it. Whatever is on your mind, whether that's it doesn't even have to be sports related. That was one of the cool things. We just talked about some random stuff, and it was a lot of fun. So we're gonna bring that back. We'll do that right now. I'll keep you posted on some of these scores and everything. But what do you guys want to talk about? Whether it's your favorite team, whether it's frustrated with work, let's talk about it. Everyone frustrated with work, right? You like puppies? Let's talk about puppies. Why not? It's up to you. This is your moment to finish out the rest of this stream with some fun topics that we could talk about, sports related or non-sports related. But the Avs did just score. We have a 2-0 game. Looks like Nathan McKinnon, who, by the way, Nathan McKinnon has been having an absolute, he's on fire early on in this postseason. He was up there with some of the greats with the scoring average that he's taken into this season as well, into this postseason. He's been unbelievable. Nathan McKinnon, if they end up winning the cup, will definitely be the MVP if they end up taking down the cup. Artis Parker, Jake Paul trolling his way to pay-per-view fights. Don't even get me started on Jake Paul. You get me started on Jake Paul or the Paul brothers, Logan Paul. It's absolutely mind-boggling to think that those guys, little social media stars, have somehow coaxed Floyd Mayweather to come out and join in on a pay-per-view fight. I can't wait for one major guy to come out, one major fighter. They haven't fought anybody who's a boxer, truly a boxer. And, the Mayweather fight, we've talked about this a little bit in the past. There's going to be a lot of excuses coming out of this fight. I can already see it now, before the fight even happens. Before it even happens, it's going to be, if he beats Mayweather, it's going to be, Mayweather's old, and you got a young kid that he's fighting, and he doesn't have it anymore. Or, if you have, I don't know. I feel like there's excuses that are coming out of, whatever happens here, to kind of just make this fight. And I don't know. Maybe it's something that ends up being kind of fun to watch. A lot of people just want to see the Paul brothers just get their ass kicked, really. Can you admire his hustle, or we just getting old? Yeah, I think it's a little, I don't know. So he has hustled his way to the top, right? He's done it in an interesting way by fighting a bunch of scrub guys and just here's the thing. He can hype himself up. If there's one thing he can start controversy with, he can start controversy with things. So the Paul brothers are great at that. They throw out some random YouTube video, or they throw out some random shit online that gets viewers in an uproar, and then that's when they make their messages and they kind of promote things. I will say there's some of the best individual self-promoters out there. You don't need promotion groups with them. They could save their money. they are absolutely great at hustling their own promotions and getting in the spotlight. So from that respect, they're ballers. They could do whatever they want because they've figured out a way, good publicity, bad publicity, to put themselves in the spotlight. So big ups to them for that. But I gotta get actually. And Deb, you bring up another great point here. I'm going to touch on that as well. I wanted to talk about that over the last couple of weeks, and I keep forgetting. We're going to touch on that in a second. R.S. Parker, your last comment here. That last fight was whack. Some fat UFC fighter looked like he was paid to lose. Yeah, it wasn't a good look. It wasn't a great look for that fight, which is why... I mean, I've seen some funny memes. Like, there was this girl, and just picture this. It was like a TikTok, I think. I saw this at a random TikTok or random Twitter meme or something. But it was a girl who, you know those punching bag machines that you see at the, you see the punching bag machines over at the, like the bars or whatever, and you punch the bag and you see the score. It like tallies up and it you know, flashes how hard you punched the bag, whatever. And it was the funniest thing I've seen. I actually showed Lauren, my wife, this meme, and she thought it was funny. She doesn't even know boxing, and she doesn't even know the Paul brothers, but she knew this one. And it was pretty funny because this girl punches the bag, and it registered a 1. It was so bad it registered a 1. And it flashes over to this dog on this guy's lap with a smirk that comes across his face, and there's a caption, Logan Paul looking for his next fight. And it was the funniest thing. If you haven't, there's some funny memes out there. People are ruthless out there in social media, and I love it. They just torch, like, Twitterverse, TikTok, all of you guys out there. So good. So you know, so funny. But I laughed so hard when he took Floyd's hat. Yeah, like, those are the kind of things that just, they make the headlines, and they make the rounds on all the social media things, and it is what it is. But Devin chat, I hate the local channels. I hate that local channels don't air any of the Nuggets and the Avs. So this is a big issue in Colorado. Now, we've been battling this for about, I would say, a year and a half, 2 years. So local networks in Colorado, so local providers, so Dish Network, DirecTV, Comcast. I think those are like the big ones. I think that those are the main ones. Everything else is like streaming services and things, which, those are all fine too. But the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche have an altitude network. It's kind of like, if you have like a regions network. They have their own network that, it's called Altitude TV, and they just, have various sports, various, different things on there. They've been negotiating for about a year and a half with the big major providers, including DirecTV, and I think DirecTV actually has some of the games, some of their altitude now, but Dish and Comcast do not. So you're taking 2 out of the 3 biggest networks and saying, because of various contract negotiations to get them on those big providers, they haven't been live on TV. So streaming services like YouTube don't get altitude. Any other streaming services, altitude's not one of those that is provided for those other streaming services. Which means, unless you have DirecTV, I think is the only one, you've been unable to watch the Avs win the President's Trophy, have one of the best seasons that they've ever had, and the Nuggets, you've missed not only their miraculous run to the playoffs, finishing 3rd seed, but you've also missed an MVP caliber season from one of a player from Jokic. That's never happened in the history of the Nuggets. They've never had an MVP. The fact that we can't watch those because of all the big money negotiations going on is absolutely disheartening. It's ridiculous, and I can't. I don't want to get on a big soapbox here, but when money is the biggest factor, when crossing the picket line and trying to get some of these networks to take on Altitude, I would love to watch Altitude. I have to figure out when they're playing on national television, otherwise I can't watch the games. So it sucks. It's absolutely ridiculous that we are unable to watch two top teams in their respective sports, and two historic seasons, one from the Nuggets having their first ever MVP that nobody was able to watch, and having a Colorado Avalanche team win the President's Trophy, which the last time they did that, they won the Stanley Cup. But we didn't watch any of those regular season games. Unless you had, a certain network, which no one has that network really. Unless you go to the bars and you have to watch the bars or something, then you could kind of catch those games. But who goes to the bar for every single game if you're a big diehard fan? Can't afford to go to the games, and the COVID, you can't get tickets. So it's just been absolutely disheartening. So it sucks. Hopefully in the next couple years or year, I don't know. I'm not holding out hope based off of the fact that we've waited this long, and it's been over a year and a half, 2 years that we've struggled to get some of our best teams on TV. But it is what it is, and I just don't feel like they have the best interest in mind for the fans of these teams that are missing out on all these amazing things. It just really sucks. But R.S. Parker, 92.5 talks Nugs, Rocks, and Avs. Yeah, there's a couple radio stations, obviously, you could listen to here locally. One of them only covers Broncos, and that's all they cover. So, if you're trying to look for any kind of Nuggets, Avalanche, Rapids, Rockies talk, you won't hear it on one of those networks, one of those radio stations. But 92.5, Altitude 92.5 is great if you like to get all the coverage on everybody there, so that's great too. But yeah, anything else you guys want to talk about? Let's throw it out there. I want to throw, I'm still, checking in on some of these scores here. The Bruins, again, win over the Capitals 3-2. Hurricanes over the Preds 3-0 to take a 2-0 series lead. Bruins over by the way, the Bruins have a 2-1 series lead over the Caps. Avalanche 2-0 currently, end of 1 over the St. Louis Blues. And the Winnipeg Jets are winning over the Oilers 2-1, and that's almost completed in the third period here. Let's go back to the NBA. I want to check on the halftime score here. Halftime score, or third quarter just started in the Warriors and LA Lakers game, the first of these play-in games for the lower seeds in this tournament. And currently, the Golden State Warriors are winning by 10, 55-45. So the Lakers still haven't really done much. LeBron James and Anthony Davis haven't scored since the second half has started yet. So, man, can you imagine the Lakers just flaming out early on? It's going to be insane. But here's what's going to happen. Let's go ahead. We're kind of getting to the end of our stream here. And by the way, I want to thank all you guys for being here with me, for all the comments, for all the participation. First of all, I want to thank everyone who participated in chat. R.S. Parker, Deb, Mayday. Thank you guys for keeping me company. Sometimes these solo streams, they're some of my favorite streams because I'm able to, have these one-on-ones, multiple one-on-ones with all of you guys, but then we're all a family. It's like we're all sitting at the table together and having a nice conversation about sports, and it's really refreshing. I mentioned when we first started the stream, this is why I love doing these Wednesday streams and why I look forward to them every single Wednesday, every single Sunday, because it's like you're sitting at the table with a bunch of beers and a bunch of, folks at the table and hanging out and talking sports and enjoying each other's company, and those are the conversations I love to have. So it just helps me to enjoy all of this that we put on for you guys that much more. So seeing all the familiar faces, Parker, Deb, Mayday, we have, all of our followers that are here. If you're here and you're not following, hit that follow button. Make sure you're following on all of our platforms, whether that's Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook Live. because we're going live every Wednesday and Sunday, and you get those notifications if you're following. It doesn't cost you anything. It's absolutely free. So just hit that follow button. Join the Lab Rats community. You know what? And also, too, I was talking about this earlier with a few people. Maybe we have some guests. Maybe we have a couple guest hosts that come in, that pop in and talk different sports. I know we were talking a little bit of boxing at the end. I have a great friend that does a lot of boxing talk. He can tell us what to look out for when it comes to some of these cartoony boxing matches, or even some of the biggest matches of the year with, like, I know we had that Tyson, or that Fury fight with, what's his name? I forget. But, I mean, some of the biggest fights of the year. We can get him in and do some guest commentary and things. So that'll be fun, too. But I couldn't do this show without you guys. It would definitely be a lot tougher for me if you guys weren't helping me out and just throwing out all your comments and all your thoughts. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We are on Wednesday. We are halfway through the week. So it is downhill from here, everybody. So tomorrow's Thursday. Then we're one day away from the weekend. We're almost there, guys. So I hope you have a fantastic rest of your weekend. I hope you guys, get through the week. You have a lot of fun over the course of the weekend, and we will see you back here in the Action Lab on Sunday. Scott will be back on Sunday, so we'll have a lot to talk about. We'll be recapping some of the games over the course of the NBA and NHL playoffs. There'll be some other news, I'm sure, that pops up. And we also have our Colorado Mile High Spotlight, where we're going to touch on all of our local teams, see how the Rockies are doing, see what's going on with the Nuggets, the Avs in their series, and then also any kind of news with the Broncos. Because who knows? Maybe we sign Aaron Rodgers this week. I doubt it. But if we make a trade for Aaron Rodgers, we probably have another, I think it's not going to happen until maybe June. A little after June, but I'm predicting it. It's going to happen. We're going to get Aaron Rodgers. We're going to win the NFL title. We're going to win the Vince Lombardi Trophy. We're going to Super Bowl. We're going to rock it, man. We're going to do great things. So I'm telling you, just be here on Sunday. We have a lot to talk about. It might be our biggest show yet. It always is, right? It's always the biggest show yet. So thanks again for all our Lab Rats. Love every single one of you. Again, we will see you Sunday. Hit those follow buttons on all the socials and everything else, and we will see you back here live on Sunday, 7:30 Mountain Time, 9:30 Eastern. And yeah, all right. Take it easy. Have a good night, guys. Love you.